The story begins in the cold waters of Ireland. A fisherman named Syracuse is out at sea doing his usual work. As he pulls up his fishing net, something unexpected appears inside it. A woman. Shocked, Syracuse rushes toward her and quickly calls for help on the radio, but no one answers. With no time to waste, he pulls the woman out and checks she's alive. He immediately starts mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. After a tense moment, it works. The woman suddenly regains consciousness. Confused, she asks him why she's still alive. Syracuse simply tells her the truth. He found her caught in his fishing net. He brings the woman inside the boat and insists that she needs to go to a hospital, but she refuses. She clearly doesn't want anyone to see her. When Syracuse asks her name, she says something strange. She doesn't know it. Thinking she may have lost her memory after being in the water, Syracuse continues sailing. On the way, he again suggests going to a hospital, but she desperately begs him not to, so instead he decides to take her somewhere no one will find her. They arrive at the house of his late mother. Once inside, the woman quietly tells him something unsettling. She believes she should already be dead. Syracuse offers her his lunch, then leaves to pick up his daughter, Annie. Annie suffers from kidney failure and has to go through dialysis every week. At the clinic, while Annie receives treatment, Syracuse entertains her by telling a story about a fisherman who was working at sea until one day he caught a mysterious girl in his fishing net. After Annie's dialysis is finished, the clinic gives her an electric wheelchair. Syracuse then drives her to the house of her ex-wife, Mara, and her partner, Alex, where Annie stays most of the time. After dropping her off, Syracuse returns to his mother's house. The woman is still there. Later, the two of them head back out to sea to go fishing together. While they're out on the water, Ondine finally suggests a name for herself. She says he can call her Ondine, which means woman from the water. Syracuse sets up several traps hoping to catch something, but nothing happens. Then suddenly, Ondine begins singing in a strange, unfamiliar language. Moments later, Syracuse starts pulling up the traps, and to his surprise, they're full of lobsters. He laughs and says it must be her singing that brings him luck. Before leaving, Syracuse throws a couple of lobsters back into the ocean. He explains that he's saving them for a rainy day. Afterward, the two get into his car. Syracuse tells Ondine that since she helped him catch so many lobsters, he plans to share the money with her. But Ondine quickly reminds him that she doesn't want to be seen by anyone, and with that, she leaves. Syracuse then goes to sell the lobsters. With the money he earns, he buys a dress for Ondine as a thank you. At the store, he notices the seller getting distracted and quietly steals a few extra clothes for her. Later, he picks Annie up again. She challenges him to a race while driving her electric wheelchair. As they move along the road, Syracuse continues the story he started earlier, the story about the fisherman and the mysterious woman who sang on his boat. Annie suddenly suggests something surprising. Maybe the woman isn't human at all. Maybe she's a seal woman. Syracuse drops Annie off at home, but Annie can't stop thinking about her father's story. Her curiosity grows stronger and stronger. Meanwhile, Syracuse returns to Ondine. He gives her the clothes he bought. Grateful, she kisses him on the cheek and thanks him. Syracuse then asks how long she plans to stay at the house. Her answer is simple. It depends on him. Without hesitation, he tells her she can stay forever if she wants. But nearby, Annie secretly watches everything from a distance. Now she's sure her father is hiding something. Determined to find answers, she heads to the library to research stories about seal people. At the same time, Syracuse goes to church. He confesses to the priest how long he's been sober and admits that he stole clothes from a store. The priest isn't happy about it. But when Syracuse explains that the clothes were for a woman he pulled from the sea, the priest becomes curious and asks him to keep him updated about the situation. Meanwhile, Annie continues researching creatures known as selkies, mythical seal people who can transform into humans. At the house, Ondine quietly cleans and tidies up the place. Soon after, Annie arrives at her grandmother's house to continue her investigation and finally meets Ondine face to face. Excited, Annie tells her that her father has already told her a story about her. Then she boldly asks the question on her mind. Does she have magical powers? Ondine avoids answering. Instead, the two of them introduce themselves properly. Then Annie confidently tells her she already knows what she is, a selkie. Ondine simply plays along. Annie says if they're going to be friends, Ondine must tell her the truth about her life as a seal, and Ondine agrees to talk with her. Meanwhile, Syracuse is at the library asking for books about selkies, but the librarian tells him something funny. All the books have already been borrowed by his daughter.
Later, Annie meets up with some friends. They ask if they can try her wheelchair, but one of them carelessly throws it into the water, damaging it completely. With no other choice, Annie decides to take it to her mother's partner so he can fix it. Elsewhere, a mysterious man stands quietly watching the ocean before suddenly leaving. Back at the docks, Syracuse invites Ondine to go fishing again. This time, he even asks her to steer the boat. But as soon as she notices a motorboat passing nearby, she becomes frightened. Syracuse tells her steering with her foot probably won't work anyway. So once again, she begins singing. And once again, the fish come. When Syracuse pulls up the net, he's shocked. It's full of salmon. That makes no sense because the type of net he's using shouldn't catch salmon at all. Just then, the same motorboat approaches them. Realizing it might be the fishing guards, Syracuse quickly tells Ondine to hide. The officers board the boat to inspect it. When they see the massive amount of salmon, they immediately become suspicious. They're convinced Syracuse must be using illegal fishing methods. They search the boat, trying to figure out how he did it. Eventually, they discover Ondine hiding. She calmly explains how Syracuse caught the fish. The guards don't completely believe her, but they decide to leave anyway. After they're gone, Syracuse asks if she's okay. Her answer is simple: no. Realizing people have already seen her, Syracuse suggests they might as well sell the salmon in the village. Since the guards have already spotted her, hiding doesn't matter anymore. So they head to the docks and sell the fish. Later, they meet up with Annie and go together to a clothing store. Annie excitedly helps Ondine choose some clothes. Then she turns to her father and asks something completely serious. Do selkies wear clothes? Syracuse just laughs at her imagination.
The next day, Annie visits Ondine again. During their conversation, Ondine asks Annie if she knows how to swim. Annie admits that she doesn't, so Ondine offers to teach her, promising it will be relaxing. Back at the water, Ondine begins teaching Annie how to swim, but during their practice they discover something strange floating in the water. Annie immediately comes to a conclusion. She believes it must be Ondine's seal skin. According to the legend, if they bury it, Ondine can stay on land for 7 more years without having to return to the sea. Later, Syracuse, Annie, and Ondine ride out on the boat together to watch the festival. When they arrive, Annie keeps teasing Ondine, insisting that she must be a selkie, but Ondine continues to deny it. Finally, Annie decides to test her theory. Without warning, she suddenly throws herself into the water. Ondine immediately dives in after her and quickly rescues the girl, bringing her safely back to the boat. Excited, Annie turns to her father and proudly announces that Ondine can breathe underwater. Later, Syracuse takes Annie back to Mora. She immediately starts scolding him, accusing him of being careless and irresponsible. When he and Ondine return home, Syracuse opens up about his past. He reveals that both he and his ex-wife struggled with alcoholism for many years. Eventually, he decided to quit drinking, for Annie's sake. But Mora didn't like that change. Their relationship fell apart and she eventually kicked him out of the house. As the conversation grows more emotional, Syracuse moves closer to Ondine, and the two share a romantic moment. Afterward, he casually asks her how old she is, but Ondine doesn't answer. Later, Syracuse returns to church to confess again. He tells the priest that Ondine has brought him incredible luck, but now he fears losing her, not just because of the luck, but because he's starting to fall in love with her. As he leaves the church, the mysterious man who was seen watching the sea earlier suddenly approaches him. He asks Syracuse a simple question: what does he call the woman who is always with him on the boat? Syracuse refuses to answer and drives away. Later, he accompanies Annie during her dialysis treatment and then takes her back to Mora's house. But when they arrive, Mora and Alex are nowhere to be found. So the two of them decide to go out and look for them. Meanwhile, the same mysterious man heads to the house where Ondine is staying. The moment she notices him, she panics and tries to run away. Back with Syracuse, he and Annie eventually find Mora. She asks him to leave Annie with her. When Syracuse returns home, he quickly notices that Ondine is gone. Worried, he begins searching everywhere until he finally finds her hiding beneath a small bridge. Ondine explains that the mysterious man had been looking for her. Trying to lighten the situation, Syracuse jokingly tells her to make a wish for the man to disappear, since, according to legend, selkies can grant wishes. But Ondine quietly replies that if that happens, she will disappear too. She says she's tired and wants to sleep, so Syracuse gently carries her back to the house. Meanwhile, Mora leaves in a van while drunk with Alex inside. While driving, they suddenly collide with the mysterious man, causing a serious accident. Not long after, Syracuse and Ondine happen to pass through the same road. They notice the wreckage and quickly realize Annie is involved. Panicked, Syracuse rushes to the hospital.
When Annie finally wakes up, she asks her father what happened, but Syracuse admits that he doesn't know. Shortly after, a doctor approaches Syracuse with devastating news. Alex has died in the accident. However, his kidney is compatible with Annie's. Because of this, doctors decide to immediately perform a transplant operation to save her life. At the same time, Ondine goes to confront the injured man. He accuses her of speaking another language and demands that she come back home with him, but she refuses. She tells him she now has a family here. Later, Syracuse receives good news. Annie's operation was successful. To him, it feels like Ondine's wish somehow came true. The next day, they all attend Alex's funeral. After the ceremony, Mora makes Syracuse an offer. He can have full custody of Annie, but only if he removes Ondine from his life. Then, Mora invites him to have a drink. After so many years of staying sober, Syracuse finally gives in. Later that night, he leaves the bar and goes to see Ondine. He tells her that he will take her home the next day. The following day, Syracuse brings her to a remote lighthouse, but when they arrive, he begins acting aggressively toward her, still affected by the alcohol. Eventually, he tells her that she'll be safe there. Then, he returns to his boat and prepares to leave. Ondine realizes what he's doing and runs after him, but Syracuse tells her something painful. He says she probably isn't even human, and because of that, their relationship could never work. Then, he abandons her. Refusing to accept it, Ondine dives into the sea and tries to swim after him. That night, Syracuse brings Annie back to his house. She immediately asks about Ondine. Syracuse sadly tells her that she had to leave, but Annie confidently says Ondine will come back because she left something behind. Suddenly, a singer on a program performs the exact same song Ondine used to sing. Syracuse realizes something important. The song is Icelandic. At that moment, he understands that he made a terrible mistake by abandoning her. Filled with regret, Syracuse begins searching everywhere for Ondine. Eventually, he finds her lying weak and exhausted. He covers her to keep her warm. Then, Ondine finally tells him the truth. She isn't a mythical creature, she's actually a fugitive. Her real name is Joanna. She used to traffic narcotics in Romania with the mysterious man who is actually her husband. During one of their operations, he forced her to swim with the drugs through the water, but she lost consciousness, and that's when Syracuse unknowingly rescued her. They return home, only to find her husband waiting there. He threatens to kill her if she doesn't tell him where the drugs are hidden. Syracuse immediately attacks him, starting a fight. A few minutes later, one of Vladic's accomplices arrives and threatens to kill Syracuse. Realizing the danger, Joanna finally agrees to show them where the drugs are buried. They go to the place where Annie had buried the object covered in seaweed, but when they dig it up, it's gone. Annie explains that she moved it earlier because she truly believed it was Ondine's sealskin. She reveals that she hid it inside the lobster traps. Vladic and his partner rush to the water to retrieve the drugs, but Joanna suddenly remembers something important. Her husband can't swim. Taking advantage of the moment, she pushes both men into the water. Vladic desperately tries to grab the drugs instead of saving himself, but within seconds, he drowns. Soon after, the police arrive and take Ondine in a patrol car. Several days later, the priest tells Syracuse that Ondine will likely be deported, but Syracuse refuses to accept that. He tells her that he will marry her so she can gain citizenship and remain in Ireland. And in the end, Syracuse and Ondine get married. Together, they finally build a new life as a family with Annie.